Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to English Listen Easy channel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma.
And I'm Jack. Emma, what are you reading?
Oh, it's a news article about climate change. It's pretty interesting.
Can you understand it?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, there are a few words I don't know, but I can grab the main idea.
That's great. So reading in English is getting easier for you?
Yeah, definitely. I can read for like an hour without getting too tired now.
Nice. But how's your listening?
Ugh, don't ask.
That bad?
Yeah, yesterday I tried to watch a movie without subtitles, and I understood maybe 30%.
Ouch.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, if I read the script of the same movie, I'd probably understand 90%.
That's actually really common.
Is it?
Oh yeah, most people find reading way easier than listening.
Why is that?
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today, listeners. Why reading in English is easier than listening.
Oh, perfect, because I really want to understand this.
Me too. I have the same problem as you.
Really?
Yeah, I can read news articles, blog posts, even short stories, but when someone talks to me on the phone, I panic.
You panic?
Yeah, my brain just shuts down.
That's exactly how I feel. It's like my ears don't work properly.
Right? But your ears are fine. The problem is something else.
What is it?
Well, there are actually several reasons. We'll talk about all of them today.
Great. And listeners, before we dive in, quick reminder. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episodes. We'd love to have you back.
All right, so let's start with the biggest reason. When you read, you control the speed.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, if a sentence is difficult, you can read it again. You can slow down, take your time.
But when someone is talking to you, they control the speed.
Exactly, and most people talk pretty fast.
Way too fast sometimes.
Right, and you can't ask them to repeat every single sentence.
Well, you can, but it gets awkward after the third time.
Very awkward. So listening is harder because you have to process everything in real time.
Wait, what does process mean?
Oh, process means to think about something and understand it, like your brain is working to make sense of the information.
Ah, okay. So when you're listening, your brain has to process everything immediately.
Exactly. There's no pause button in real conversations.
But when you're reading, you can pause anytime you want.
Yep, you can take a break, look up a word, reread a paragraph.
That makes so much sense. So reading is easier because you're in control.
Exactly. You set the pace, not the text.
Okay, so that's reason number 1. What's reason number 2?
Reason number 2 is that when you read, you can see the words.
Well, obviously.
I know it sounds obvious, but think about it. When you see a word written down, your brain can recognize it more easily.
Oh, because you've seen that word before in writing.
Right, and you probably practiced spelling it, or you saw it in a textbook.
But when you hear a word, it might sound different than you expected.
Exactly. Like, have you ever heard a word in a conversation and had no idea what it was, but then you saw it written down and thought, oh, I know that word?
Yes, that happens to me all the time.
Me too. It's so frustrating.
Like, I know the word when I see it, but I don't recognize it when I hear it.
And that's because pronunciation in English is weird.
Very weird. Words don't sound like they're spelled.
Not always, no. Like night and night sound the same, but they're spelled totally differently.
Or read and read are spelled the same, but pronounced differently.
English is confusing.
Very confusing. So when we're listening, we have to recognize words just by their sound.
And that's way harder than recognizing them by how they look.
Especially if the speaker has an accent.
Oh, don't even get me started on accents.
You struggle with accents too?
So much. I can understand American English pretty well, but British English? Forget it.
What about Australian English?
Oh, even worse. I watched an Australian movie once and I needed subtitles.
But you can read Australian English just fine, right?
Of course, because written English is written English. It doesn't matter where the writer is from.
But spoken English changes completely depending on the accent.
Exactly. That's another reason listening is harder.
Okay, so we have 3 reasons so far. Reading lets you control the speed, you can see the words, and there are no accents in writing.
Right, but there's more.
What else?
When you read, you can use context clues.
Context clues?
Yeah, like if you don't know a word, you can look at the other words around it and guess the meaning.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Everyone does. It's a great strategy. But when you're listening, context clues are harder to grab
Why?
because the words disappear as soon as they're spoken. You can't go back and look at them.
Unless you're listening to a recording and you can rewind.
True, but in a real conversation, you can't rewind.
That's fair, so listening requires more focus.
Way more focus. You have to absorb everything the first time you hear it.
And if you miss one word, you might miss the whole sentence.
Exactly. Listening is like a chain. If one link breaks, the whole thing falls apart.
But reading is more forgiving. You can miss one word and still understand the paragraph.
Right, because you can see the whole paragraph at once. You have the big picture.
But when listening, you only have the present moment.
Exactly. You're always 1 second behind, trying to catch up.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. That's why listening is so tiring.
I always feel mentally drained after watching a movie in English.
Same, but reading a book in English, not as draining.
Interesting. So our brains work harder when we listen.
Yeah, because there's more uncertainty. With reading, you can always go back and check. With listening, you just have to trust that you heard it correctly.
And sometimes you didn't hear it correctly.
Yep, I once thought someone said, "I'm leaving," but they actually said, "I'm living."
That's such a different meaning.
I know, and the conversation made no sense until I realized my mistake.
That happens to me too. I mishear words all the time.
And that's another reason listening is harder. Similar sounds get mixed up.
Like can and can't.
Oh, that's the worst one. I can help and I can't help sound almost the same.
Especially when people speak fast.
Right. They say I can't help really quickly, and it sounds like I can help.
So you think they're offering to help, but they're actually saying they can't help.
Exactly. And then you feel stupid when you realize your mistake.
Don't feel stupid. It's a normal problem.
I know, but it's still frustrating.
It is. But you know what? I think we're being too hard on ourselves.
What do you mean?
Well, we keep talking about how difficult listening is, but we should also remember that we're getting better.
That's true. I can understand way more now than I could a year ago.
Same. Like last year, I couldn't watch any movies without subtitles. Now I can watch some movies and understand the main story.
That's great progress.
Thanks. And I think the key is just to keep practicing.
Yeah, but practicing listening is hard. You can't measure your progress easily.
True. With reading, you can see your progress. Like, I used to read one page in 20 minutes. Now I can read one page in 5 minutes.
But with listening, how do you measure improvement?
Good question. I guess you just notice that conversations feel easier over time.
Yeah, like you said, you notice you're understanding more of the movie.
Right. It's not like reading where you can count pages or words per minute,
Listening progress is more subtle.
but it's still progress.
Definitely. And I think that's important for listeners to remember. Even if you can't measure it, you are improving.
Absolutely. Every conversation you listen to, every podcast episode, every movie, they all help.
Even if you don't understand everything.
Even if you understand 50%, that's still practice.
And 50% today might be 60% next month.
Exactly. Progress happens gradually.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of reasons why reading is easier. Let me recap them. First, reading lets you control the speed. You can slow down or speed up as needed.
Second, you can see the words, which makes them easier to recognize.
Third, written English has no accent. It's the same no matter who wrote it.
Fourth, you can use context clues more easily because the text doesn't disappear.
Fifth, you can reread things if you didn't understand the first time.
Sixth, similar sounds don't confuse you in reading because you see the spelling.
And finally, reading is just less tiring because your brain doesn't have to work as hard to process everything in real time.
Wow, that's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, no wonder listening is harder.
No wonder at all.
But here's the thing, Emma. Even though listening is harder, I think it's more important.
Really? Why?
Because in real life, you use listening way more than reading.
I never thought about that.
Think about it. How often do you talk to people versus how often do you read?
Well, I talk to people every day, but I only read like once or twice a week.
Exactly. So if you want to use English in real life, you need good listening skills.
That makes sense. Reading is useful, but listening is essential.
Right. You can survive without reading English very well, but if you can't understand people when they talk, you're in trouble.
So even though listening is harder, we should focus on it more.
I think so, yeah. Or at least balance reading and listening practice.
How do you balance them?
Well, I try to spend equal time on both. Like if I read for 30 minutes, I also listen to a podcast for 30 minutes.
That's a good system.
It helps me improve both skills at the same time.
I should try that. Right now, I read way more than I listen.
And that might be why your listening is weaker.
Yeah, probably. I avoid listening because it's hard.
But avoiding it doesn't make it easier.
I know. I need to face it.
You do. And honestly, I think listening gets easier if you do it regularly.
Really?
Yeah. Like when I first started listening to podcasts, I was so lost. I couldn't follow anything.
And now?
Now I can understand most podcasts pretty well. It took like 6 months of daily practice, but I got there.
6 months of daily practice?
Yeah, I listen to at least one podcast episode every single day.
That's dedication.
It was hard at first, but it became a habit after a few weeks.
And you really saw improvement?
Huge improvement. At the beginning, I had to replay sentences 5 or 6 times. Now, I rarely need to replay anything.
Wow, okay, you're inspiring me.
Good. You should practice more listening.
I will, starting today.
That's the spirit.
But Jack, do you have any tips for making listening practice easier?
Yeah, a few. First, start with content you already know.
Like what?
Like, watch a movie you've already seen in your own language. That way, you know the story, so you can focus on understanding the English.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it takes some of the pressure away.
What else?
Use subtitles, but in English, not in your own language.
Why English subtitles?
because then you're still practicing reading and listening at the same time, and you can see how words are spelled while you hear them.
Oh, that helps connect the sound to the spelling.
Exactly. It trains your brain to recognize words both ways.
I love that tip. What else?
Listen to the same thing multiple times, like we talked about in our repetition episode.
Right, repetition helps you absorb the material.
Yeah, the first time you listen, you might only understand 40%. The second time, maybe 60%. The third time, maybe 80%.
So you're gradually building up your understanding.
Exactly. And each time, your brain gets better at processing the sounds.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that.
Good. And one more tip.
What?
Don't worry about understanding every single word. Focus on the main idea.
But I want to understand everything.
I know, but that's unrealistic, especially at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, even native speakers don't catch every word in a conversation. They just grab the main points.
I didn't know that.
It's true, so don't stress if you miss a few words here and there. Listening should be enjoyable, not stressful.
I'll try to remember that.
Please do. And listeners, you should remember it too. Listening is hard, but it gets easier with practice.
And even though reading is easier, don't rely on it too much.
Right. Balance your practice between reading and listening.
And be patient with yourself. Progress takes time.
Especially with listening.
All right, let's do a quick recap for everyone.
Sure. So today we talked about why reading in English is easier than listening.
Reading is easier because you control the speed, you can see the words, and there are no accents to worry about.
You can also use context clues more easily, and you can reread things if you don't understand.
Listening is harder because it happens in real time, words can sound different than expected, and you can't go back to check.
But even though listening is harder, it's more important for real-life communication.
So we should practice listening regularly, even if it feels difficult.
Tips for improving listening include watching familiar movies, using English subtitles, and listening to the same content multiple times.
And don't worry about understanding every word, focus on the main idea.
Perfect recap.
Thanks. And before we finish, I have a bonus tip for listeners.
What is it?
Try listening to this podcast without reading the transcript. Just listen and see how much you can understand.
Oh, that's a great challenge.
Yeah, and then if you want, you can read the transcript later to check your understanding.
That's perfect practice. You're using both skills.
Exactly. Okay, let's remind everyone about our word of the episode.
Right. The word was process.
It means to think about something and understand it, or to work through information.
Like your brain needs some time to process new vocabulary, or I'm still processing what you just said.
Perfect examples. It's a really useful word for talking about learning.
All right, everyone, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
If this episode helped you, please like it, share it, and subscribe. We really appreciate your support.
And we have a question for you, listeners. Is reading easier than listening for you, or is it the opposite?
Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about your experience.
See you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone, and remember, listening is hard for everyone, not just you.
Keep practicing.
You've got this. Bye.